Oh, better late than never. It's showtime, everybody. Bring it in. It was me. It was me. Actually, it's ironic. We're going to talk about nothing but race today, and for a little while, I was black. It's just the screen was completely black.
I can hear you.
How's everybody doing?
Not great.
You know, we're maintaining as best as we can, Henry. You know, how about you, Coach?
Not great. My wife was really down this morning, as understandably so. My afternoon is going to be filled with talking to dear friends of mine that we bring it in. That's what we do when these kind of things happen. My closest friends, black and white, bring it in, and they're all my age, and we talk about it. So this will be my first of many bring it ins today.
Yeah, I have a pretty great ability to be like, this too shall pass. And this morning's like, I woke up early and checking Twitter. I'm like, holy shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jarod, we've been talking a lot. You've got a whole thing. You got a whole thing.
There's a lot to
get
get into. And the first thing I want to start with is we all have our different ways that we process and get through these things when we hear these unspeakable tragedies that happen literally every single day in this country that have happened since August of 1619. And for those of you that don't know what date that is the first day that a slave ship touched the shores of this country. And from 1619 until now, the same thing has been happening over and over again. And for me, being someone who studies history, who's an English major, who likes to dig into this stuff and understand, I find myself whenever these scenarios occur, I dive back into, some of our great writers and thinkers, your James Baldwin's, your Malcolm X's, Martin Luther King's, et cetera, W.E.B. Du Bois. And there are a few quotes that I want to just read out right now because their words now are truer than they ever were. And this is James Baldwin. To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. Baldwin continues, whatever white people do not know about Negroes reveals precisely and inexorably what they do not know about themselves. And W.E.B. Du Bois, in one of his most famous works, The Souls of Black Folks, he talks about the double consciousness. And in this particular passage, he's talking about being Black. One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder. And the final quote I'm going to read, actually, I'm not even going to read it. I'm going to let Judy play. It's from Martin Luther King Jr.
I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society, which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. What is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last few years.
And, we talked about this at the beginning of the show. I mean, one of our great orators, one of the great men this country's ever produced in terms of what he's able to do as it relates to civil rights. That gives me chills. And as I said,
I literally hair standing on end, like literally.
You feel it, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't feel it, I have many questions about you. This is where we are as a society right now. All these things and these men we're talking about in the 60s, in the 50s, and even earlier, Du Bois is before all of that. Nothing has changed. We talk about the criminal justice system, the economic system, and all these things. Folks, as systems and in terms of their efficacy, they are perfect. In that, they work exactly how they are designed to work. These systems are flawless. If you want to study systems that work perfectly well, look around, right? This is exactly how they were designed. And whether you talk about Amadou Diallo, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, Philando Castillo, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Botham Jean, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd is the recent. And by the way, those are just a handful of the names you might know. I mean, there are thousands of others, millions over the course of our history that nameless, you don't even know who they are. But this is exactly where this country intended us to be based on all of the things that happened from the beginning. You know, if you're someone who frequents social media, you always see things, or you might see a slogan, "We built this for free," right? This wonderful country that we live in was built off of the blood and labor of Black people for free, right? Slavery, that's what that was. And the abolition of slavery does not now mean everything is all good. The election of a two-term Black president does not mean everything is all good. And it is clearly evident as we're seeing right now, right? And I think what's really important for us to understand as a society is how we get better through this is by, one, understanding the history, and two, now that we know, you know what's going on, there should be no more excuse for not knowing. The evidence is everywhere. It's time to stop knowing and start doing, right? And we'll get into the different ways in which people can help and do that later. But the latest.
Do you have a brochure or something? Is there like a handy guide?
Yeah, I'll give it a handy guide. 10 steps how you can help. One of the things that really struck about George Floyd, and we're tying it back into the NBA. George Floyd is a childhood friend of Stephen Stack Jackson, and if any of, and Henry, I know you know Stack a little bit, and David, I'm not sure if you've ever talked to Stack before. Stack is one of the realest people you will ever meet in your entire life. There is no pretense, no bullshit, no nothing with him. Everything is straight from his heart and how he feels. And he's on the Today Show with Craig Melvin talking about how he learned about George Floyd's murder. If Judy, you want to play that?
It was meant to be. I'm from Port Arthur, Texas, probably 45 minutes from Houston, and we was introduced through a mutual friend that's passed by, that's now, rest in peace to him. But once we saw each other, the first question we asked, "Who your daddy? Who your daddy?" and it went from there. We always hung together. Every time I went to Houston, it was my first stop to stop and pick him up and see where he was in CUNY Homes. And what's killing me the most about this whole thing is being a professional athlete. So many people abuse your friendship and your kindness, and he was one of those guys that genuinely supported me. He didn't call unless he really needed it. And you don't have many people that genuinely support you without any motives, and Floyd was that guy.
How did you find out what had happened, Stephen?
My girlfriend's mom is from Minnesota, and we talk about these type of things all the time. And she sent me videos all the time. So I was actually asleep on the couch with my daughter, and she sent me and I looked at the video, and I was thinking it's just another video that she's sending me, another Black man getting murdered by the police, and I didn't really pay attention to it. As I clicked out of the message, I had 50 messages, and I clicked on one of them from my friend Mike D, and he said, "You see what they did your twin in Minnesota?" And I jumped up, screamed, scared my daughter, almost broke my hand, punch and stuff, because I was so mad. Because I'm the type of guy, I get mad and I get into a full face of tears when I see a homeless man on the street that I can't help. So let alone my best friend on TV for the world to see getting killed over a fraud charge or a fake $20 bill. It just destroyed me, and I haven't been the same since I seen it.
And I don't know how you see that, and like you're not feeling this. It's incredible, and I want to dovetail that specifically with NBA Golden State Warriors head coach Steve Kerr. He recently sat down with Vinny Goodwill of Yahoo Sports to talk about this, among other things. And this is directly from Steve Kerr. "I think most people in my circle can talk about this stuff, and we are horrified. And then we move on to the next day. Human nature is to live your own life. Take care of yourself, take care of your family. When you see something horrifying, you want to do something about it. But when you don't live it, when it's not in your backyard, not your children, it's easier for things to slide by, even when people are outraged." And Kerr, as we all know, is, an ally, someone who lost his father to gun violence, who is an advocate for everything that is right. And what I thought was so interesting was, even for him to say that lets you know this is part of why we are where we are. His ability to not recognize the humanity in everyone, right? NBA players all feel this, right? It doesn't matter that they're 6'9", they got hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. Like, that's why you saw all their tweets going crazy, because if not for basketball, this could be them. And hell, basketball might even stop that from being them, right?
Right.
Because it happened to Sterling Brown of the Milwaukee Bucks, right? He didn't get killed, but these are the things that happen. And there is something interesting floating around online right now. And for me, watching these videos of people that look like me getting killed, it's jarring. And I tend not to watch it, right? It tends to turn into macabre theater. But there's something else going on where people are sending out parallel videos of police interacting with non-Black people and the police ability to diffuse those situations without any violence. And what struck me and what I find so fascinating is if you watch any of the videos where, whether it's a white person wielding a machete or they've got a gun or doing anything crazy, the posture of the police officers in almost all of these videos is one of backing up in retreat and defense, i.e., I'm afraid, right? When we hear the defense, when almost every Black person is killed, it is what? I feared for my life. But if you watch the video, that's not the body language and posture that I see, right?
Right.
I see men that are stalking and hunting, right? Because when you are aggressive, you're coming at someone. That is what I see. I see constant forward motion and aggression, like a lion in the jungle stalking its prey. And when we have agents of the state killing unarmed citizens, because in almost every circumstance, the Black person is always unarmed, right? They're killing unarmed citizens. It is state-sanctioned murder. And we, as a society and as a country, we must do better. And it's not enough to be like, yeah, I see it. Let's drag them on the internet. Let's get them fired. Let's do, no. It's more than that. This entire system needs to be changed, and we all need to mobilize and do what is right to get the right elected officials in to do what is necessary, because policy change is how this works, right? Punishing the officers may make you feel good for 30 seconds or a minute. Guess what? None of these people I mentioned are coming back alive. They're dead, gone, over. So there is no justice in that way. But as Adina says in the chat, burn it down. Revolution. That is how this works. You literally revolt. And, you know, Do the Right Thing is a movie I'm sure you guys have all seen. And I know Adina and Chad watched it last night as they tweeted about it. Summertime is a very interesting season in this country. And given what's going on with the pandemic, if for whatever reason we happen to have a hot summer, tensions are going to start rising even more than they already are. And I fear for all of us, if we don't wake up and again realize you, all of us on this call, me, we are in this together. It's us. When we realize we are all in this together and have more in common, we'll be okay. But we're nowhere near there yet. And the reaction from NBA players and what's been going on, it's been a lot, guys. It's been a lot.
So that Martin Luther King talk, which made my hair stand on end, you know, what is it that Americans are failing to hear, right? That seems like the right question. So, and I hear you, nothing's changed, and that it's organized, right? And actually, honestly, for me, the Ta-Nehisi Coates Atlantic cover story of whatever 8-9 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
was just a beautiful, this was the thing now where it was like, we can stop saying that it was an incident, right?
Right.
Like now it's like, no. It's like, it's every city, it's all these different network of policies, it's mortgages and redlining and guns, you know, there's like a lot of different things stacked on top of each other, school districts and on. Okay. Like, and actually Marcus Thompson wrote this beautiful story today for The Athletic, where he kind of articulates like, look, you know, don't look away. Yeah, this story, I really recommend it. Probably the best thing. Athletics has some good stuff. This is the best thing in History Athletic, I would say. But one of his points is like, you know, there are no easy answers, and you have to stare all the way into the thing and see how it works, right? I see this almost like a medical thing. It's like, yeah, look, so this is a sick patient, and to make it healthy, we have to understand how the whole body works, right? It's a giant project. Like, I got time for it. Like, I want to be part of it, right? I know David does. And it seems to involve just more different, better things than good intentions and doing our media jobs, right? So talk me through more. Let's get the brochure going.
Well, 100%, right? I mean, look, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, as the saying goes, right?
Right.
So it is no longer about intentions. First, it is up to this country's they are required to admit and own up to what slavery is and was, which is something we have yet to do. If you look at, and I'm not saying this country is perfect because they're certainly not. Germany owns up to the Holocaust in many ways, right? They talk about it, and David, I know you know this. They talk about it extensively. And the reason they do that is because we can't have this happen again, right? Which is why they talk about it. The idea of slavery as this thing that just happened, yeah, some people had some bad stuff happen to them. All right, but we abolished it and things are all cool now. Like, no, like to your point, it's everything. It's from that to indentured servitude, to mass incarceration, to Jim Crow, to it's everything, to police brutality. Look at just something as simple as the police. Everyone knows, I would assume, knows the origin of the police. Police were slave catchers. That is where the police history comes from. They were slave catchers. Look back through history, and it's everywhere online. You can see the badges and things that they wear, right? It's the modern day police badge. It's the same thing. And all it was move forward, 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 forward. And part of the way in which, Henry, how do we get better with this? Okay, first, it's the knowledge, owning up to it. You got to admit it first. And we haven't done that yet. Two, understand what was done to the Black people in this country when slavery was abolished. Okay, we promised you after slavery was abolished, 40 acres and a mule, you're all good, you can do your thing. No 40 acres and a mule. They didn't get anything. And all of the post-war GI bills and different things that helped create the middle class, Black people were largely locked out of those things. It goes back to the Black Wall Street, the race riots in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Again, all these things that you guys can look to that point to areas where, yeah, we set up these ideas and these things that we're going to do, but we never actually followed through on any of them. And the idea that, your lot in life, Black people, it's your fault because you don't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Again, that's telling the man to do that without boots on. Well, I got no straps, dummy. Like, how can I do this? And the economics is such a big piece because that is why we are where we are. And I mean, that article says, the headline says it all. It is not up to us to cure white racism, right? We cannot explain it to you any more than what you see every day in your face. You tell us, well, if you just listen to what police say and comply, you won't get killed. Hello? None of the people we've seen recently have resisted arrest, yet get killed anyway, right? So it is incumbent on, now that the knowledge is out there and you see it, it is up to you to be actively engaged in doing it. Because what history has shown us is that the power structure, they don't listen to us. We don't have any clout because we tried, it doesn't work. It's about democracy and exercising your fundamental rights. And part of that is the voting cycle. And that's not just, okay, I vote every time there's an election. And you can be someone who votes every national and local election. That's wonderful. Step one. Your job doesn't end after that. Your job is to now hold these elected officials accountable. And that's all of us, right? If you said you were going to run on a campaign of bail reform, prison reform, you've done none of those things. I haven't heard you talk about it once. Okay, clock's ticking. We're not reelecting you, right? But again, as Steve Kerr said in his piece, the natural reaction is to go along with your life and move on. As a society, we are disincentivized from working together and helping each other out, right? Think about it. When you wake up every day, and this is not a wrong thing to feel, but almost all of us feel this way. I got to pay my mortgage, feed my kids. That is what consumes your day-to-day every day. I don't got time to think about someone who's not me, who's getting killed. I feel bad, and that's how so many of us think. But the reality of it is, once we realize that we, the populace together, we actually run this. If we figure that out, this whole system gets toppled tomorrow. But will we? I don't know. I don't know, Henry.
There's a weird, terrible, so Black Lives Matter to me was a very useful phrase and movement right? And the point was, of course, like all of these things that we're talking about that are causing riots today, right? The point was like, hey, like sometimes Americans die and no one notices or cares. And we don't even acknowledge it was a murder, right? No one gets in trouble. There's no state funded funeral. There's no like, sorry for your family. There's no, if people die in America, generally there's some acknowledgement and procedure and maybe a legal outcome, etc., right? But Black lives often don't get that, right? So to me, what really struck me as I don't want to believe that police see themselves, and obviously police are a bunch of different people who are individuals, have their own thoughts, and they don't, not everybody's fits the prototype, right? But like I didn't want to believe that there were a large number of police officers who saw themselves as like essentially like one gang in warfare with Black people. But then Blue Lives Matter, which was, I think, a little bit stoked by social media from Russia, right? But then Blue Lives Matter emerges as like a counterpoint. Like, hold on. Like, you're telling me that just acknowledging the reality of Black people existing as humans with lives worth noticing needs you to make some sort of counterpoint where we lift up the police who do get state-funded funerals and do get benefits when they die, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that struck me as just like, what? Why would that be a natural thing to follow? It made it very plain how people process that.
And Henry, you bring up an interesting point there. America as a nation, we are the most over-policed state in the world, period. More so than all the countries you hear about and nations that are these quote-unquote boogeymen. More than China, more than Russia. We are also the most over-incarcerated population of any country in the entire world. And you look at it, in all these other countries, the violence is nowhere near as high, and they have nowhere near the level of over-policing. So what is it about America that is so different than everywhere else? I've got some theories on that, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, Canada's right there. Canada's essentially an identical nation, just without so much slavery, right? Like,
funny how that works.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
All right. So, this is a story about fear, right? Like, I don't know. I've noticed in my life, I'm sure there are experts who could tell us about this, but like, let's say you do something bad to me, right? We know how that works. Like, I can quite likely forgive you, right? Like, maybe you, whatever it is. Let's say you take my shirt, right? And I'm like, hey man, I'm sort of bummed you took my shirt. But then 18 months later, it's as if it never happened, right? If I've noticed in my life that if I do something bad to you, that's much harder for me to get over, right? Like, I feel weird about myself if I acknowledge that I did a bad thing. Like, some of the worst kind of fallings out of how people in like my career or whatever are people who screwed me, people who like did terrible things to me. Like, they can't get over it, right? Like, this strikes me as like, there's a thing like where where white Americans have done terrible things to Black people, like they need to demonize Black people so they can see themselves as okay. They need to tell themselves that Black people had it coming for some crazy ass reason, right? And like, that's, I feel like that's a difference we have with Canada or places, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, terrible shit happened here. Just
it is.
That's hard for white people to get over, or some white people.
100%. And part of the situation with, as a country, we talked about how do we talk about race and what are the ways in which we help. One of the other ways we do is, as we talk about race, we must be able to do it in a way that it doesn't matter if white people feel comfortable or not. Like, white people's comfort level is not the primary objective here. You feel uncomfortable? Oh, well. Like, slavery is pretty uncomfortable, guys. Like, reality. That's just how it works.
Wait, can we convince Adina to join us?
Yes, Adina can come on in.
Come on, Adina. I don't know. She might not want to, but up to you, Adina. But if you want to,
it is mind-numbing. And I'm gonna, right before Adina joins in, I'm gonna say this about George Floyd. I believe we're still waiting on charges to be filed against these officers. Yes,
I haven't seen word of it. Yeah.
At a minimum, it should be state murder charges because they killed someone. And number two, federal civil rights charges because you violated his civil rights. his civil right to breathe, right? Like, and Adina said something so perfect in the chat. My existence is a threat that requires a rebuttal and to be policed, right? Just our mere presence walking down the street or breathing air is something that causes problems for lots of people. Hi, Dina.
Hi, Dina. Good morning.
Good morning, Bonnie and all. I was like, we keeping it real. This is
Love it.
But no, you're absolutely right. Like my mom tells me a lot of times that, you know, if you know somebody has a right to be angry, you should be scared of them, right? If someone's been oppressed for over 200 years, I'm kind of scared as to what that person is capable of doing. But all we've done is, you know, be a peaceful people, be welcoming, you know, have people embrace and damn near take our culture. There's nothing that we've done that stands the level of hatred that we've experienced. So why the fuck are you so scared? You're the
Dina,
one.
can I ask you about your dad?
Oh yeah. So my father is a retired NYPD officer, and he actually worked in the police academy, and their job was to train police officers, right? So my dad routinely like practices holds on me and things like that. That's a whole nother
Oh God.
thing, right? Like he's like, what do you know about this one? And I'm like, stop that. But so we, you know, our family group chat is filled with these videos of like, Dad, what did they do wrong here? What is this? And he's just like, I can't, these cowboys, who do they think they are? Were these bullied young people or something? Because they're doing everything completely wrong from what they've learned in their training. And this is a literal police officer, school teacher. That's what he was. And they're doing these things wrong. And, you know, Jarod was talking about police officers, and I love that my dad's a police officer, a retired police officer. He grew up in segregated North Carolina. So those badges that you see that came from slave rounder-uppers and people who arrested slaves, like, it's such a mind-blowing experience to know that he actually now wears that badge and that we've come that far, but still here we are, right?
What is life like? I mean, I've had this conversation with friends, but like, what is life like for the officer of conscience, right? Like, do you get to go back to work and be like, hey, what a bunch of assholes in Minnesota? Or at work, do you just kind of keep it quiet because you don't know how your colleagues feel about it?
You mean like if you're just in a regular office, or like if you're a police officer?
Yes, I'm thinking about those, like, there have been these lawsuits with the NYPD where, like, you know, like black officers who've been a little vocal about black rights have been sidelined or given bad assignments, etc.
Actually, I'm really proud of my dad because he ended up joining the CCRB, which is called the Civil Complaint Review Board, if you heard of it. And when you do have an issue with the NYPD, your case gets elevated to this review board. It has a lawyer on it. It has, I guess, 2 people from government, and then a retired police officer, which was him, so that they can review the case as a whole and see if the right procedures were taken and from the police officer side. But then a lawyer comes in, and so to me, I feel like I'm happy he did his due justice in and whatever cases that he you know, helped adjudicate at that time. But I can't speak for him and what he did when he would go into the academy. But right now, we're, like I said, as a family, we're always constantly disgusted at what we see. And my nephew that I spoke to you guys about, who played basketball in Greece, my sister put up a picture of him yesterday, and it's like, hi, this is my son. He's tatted up. He speaks the language of his community. He's from East New York, Brooklyn. He's the grandson of a highly decorated police officer. Don't shoot him, you know? Don't shoot him. He's gonna be in a car at 10 o'clock with his friends, listening to music, and he's 6 foot plus. I don't see anybody caring about all of that behind him, and it's hard to think about. And lastly, I feel like I'm ranting, but like, I talk about my husband all the time. Like, if he doesn't pick up the phone, sometimes when I call him twice in 30 minutes, I think he's been arrested or shot. And I'm not joking.
What do you think of this Blue Lives Matter? I can't talk. The thing I said earlier.
The Blue Lives Matter, that's what I said. It was like, you know, this whole that you have to have this rebuttal to someone. when someone tells you about their feelings, there should never be an argument. And that is all, because my feelings are always my truth. And that is all Black Lives Matter is. It's us telling you about our feelings. Now, as people say, a hit dog gonna holler, right? Right? And so that's what they are. They're hit dogs. Oh, they feel us. You feel a type of way because I'm talking about my feelings. Oh, you think I'm talking about you? You think I'm talking about you're the bad police officer, and that's, or you're the bad person, and that's why you want to have this hashtag and you want to have this gang. And obviously, blue lives, how much do they matter to some of these people, because they're in their face with AR-15s. They're pushing them. So now blue lives don't matter. That's interesting.
Preach on it, girl.
You know what I'm saying?
I have one comment just on the Black Lives, Blue Lives Matter that really bothers me. Part of the issue with the anger in the Black community is not only are they being murdered, but no one ever gets arrested for it. If they get arrested for it, they're not convicted. Tell me the last time a cop was attacked and whoever the perpetrator was didn't go to jail forever. Like, that isn't, no one's arguing the fact that we're not trying to kill people that are policemen. The whole, watch any TV or movie, a TV show or movie, when a cop gets killed, everyone rallies up to that. The police department is singularly focused to find that perpetrator. But when a guy gets choked in the street and for whatever he was accused of, they haven't been arrested yet, as Jarod, you just mentioned. They're actually, I think yesterday, the state's attorney made an argument that there's some evidence that's preventing them from arresting to this point. Come on. I mean, when they do get arrested, does anyone really think they're getting convicted with the laws?
Maybe now, actually. Maybe now. Maybe this will be an outlier.
Right,
I think
outlier, maybe. But when they haven't arrested yet, I'm very concerned about it. And now we find out that they work together. We don't know if they knew each other at work. It's fair to wonder. You have to know every person you work with. But now I'm certainly curious.
I'm confused about that report, though. Steven Jackson said that he picked him up in Houston every day, every time he went to Houston. And then this city councilwoman said they worked together for 17 years in the Twin Cities. Like, somebody's wrong. I don't know what happened, but that's a weird report. I don't know what, like.
And he also spent, I believe, like 5 years in prison. So, this is the timeline's a little off, but like you said, if they work together, this sounds like a state-sanctioned get back.
Something happened.
Well, I mean, that's what's happening all the time, right? These, to David's point, again, with no arrests and charges happening, the government is basically telling you, and they are okaying it, is state-sanctioned murder of its citizens. They are okay with it. It's fine. That's how we do things. Not to mention the blow up you're going to hear. And by the way, this isn't a left-right issue, right? This isn't politics. This is human beings and lives and decency. Everyone's going to freak out now about the rioting and the quote-unquote looting. I don't give a what about a Target getting a brick thrown through it, or who cares? People are dying. It doesn't matter that Target doesn't have a TV now because someone threw a brick through the window or there's a fire on top of a roof. No, this happens as a direct result on you've been kicking me and killing me for too long. This is now my response because you have not been listening and hearing. We heard the words of Dr. King. It is the language of the unheard. That is what happens when you don't listen to people. You're like, I've been telling you this for 400 years. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to go do this.
Exactly. And now you actually listen to me, but you're not hearing what I'm saying. You're more concerned about the television and Target.
Yes.
I feel like on this show we're very much so for conspiracies. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Right? Okay, so I have one.
Okay.
Just with the and I mean, it probably is a conspiracy. Somebody could probably find a lot of facts about this. I mean, we've seen that there are members of terrorist groups, such as there are I don't know if I guess you would call them like skinheads or members of the Klan that have been part of police departments, right? It has
in the military.
Yeah, in the military, right? The way these killings are happening, they're so systemic and they're all in the same pattern, right? The way people are calling 911 for the same things, the way where it's knee to the neck, it's almost as if it's been taught that it's in a book and this is how you do it. And part of me is like, are there meetings that people are having to discuss these things and how we are to skirt around the laws of our land in order to systemically oppress people who we know that they have a right to be angry? It's just too much of a coincidence that Eric Garner can't breathe and then Floyd can't breathe, that there's a knee on the neck and there's a knee on the neck and there's a chokehold here, or there's a person calling 911 for a barbecue and then we're going to call 911 for bird watching. Like, it just all feels like it's written down and people are following a code. Just
I feel like
I'm with you.
So that's super interesting, and like I'm willing to believe. And I've noticed, this is the time of internet communication, right? Like, we're doing it right now. We're having like a small group conversation. Like, of course, there are small group conversations happening So I guess I feel like there are always going to be sociopaths and psychopaths and violence to some degree, right? Like there are going to be a certain number of, people of every color who are mentally effed in some way where they're going to be dangerous, right? What's weird to me about now is it seems like it's 10x, 100x, 1000x because it's been stoked for political reasons, right? And this is where you're gonna laugh, Adina, at the conspiracy theory nature of this, but like, it's totally overt that like Vladimir Putin took over Russia. I promised you I was gonna go to this crazy place, but
you did. But it's okay. We're going there.
Like he polled at like 2, 3, 4% when he was chosen as the successor, and so they had to make sort of a big campaign to make him electable. He was appointed as the head of the party months before the first election. There's incredible reporting suggesting the incredible thing that what they did was intentionally bomb a whole bunch of apartment buildings all over Russia to make everybody terrified. And then the hero who zoomed to the scene and had a press conference would say, it was the Chechens. The Chechens did it. They were so ham-handed about it, they ended up finding an unexploded bomb, which was an explosive only the FSB had, and they arrested the people who put it there and their FSB agents who worked for Vladimir Putin, the former head of the FSB. So there's a very deliberate strategy of terrify everybody, and then they'll fall for a strongman, right? So like, in addition to everything else that's going on in America's, like what Jarod and Dina have explained to us beautifully, and all these other great pieces of work that you referenced, in addition to that, right now, there's just an active campaign to make us hate each other, right? Like, the Facebook dollars that they spent from the Kremlin were for like a lot of famously for white supremacy, but also like, hey, like go to this corner in Houston, like Black Lives Matter people. At the same time, they're having like white supremacists meet there, hoping to make what's happening in Minnesota right now happen, right? This is how you break America, right? This is how you make an America that's so weak that Russia can walk into the Ukraine and NATO won't stop it, right? Like if we're all just wanting to hate each other, then we can't do crap, right? So I don't know like how many nice things we get to have in the future, but like things that we want, like, universities and good healthcare, and like, they aren't things individuals can build, right? We need to have a giant number of people. If we can get 1 million people wanting the same thing, working towards it, contributing, we can have if we can get 100 million, 500 million, we can have very nice things, right? We can have beautiful things, but we need to trust each other to have those things. And in addition to everything that's happening, there's like literally intentionally, it's been working in Russia. Like, you can look at the history of Putin's rule, like at every moment, there's an enemy. Like, they rolled through Chechens, gays, well, like, it's us right now. It's Americans right now. Like, this is not some big.
Do we need a common enemy? Do we need, not saying I'm starting a war, but
we do.
When we have alien invasion, it'll be easy for us to get over the race thing.
Yeah,
right. You're right. No, we do need to realize that.
Yeah,
because
the aliens are looking at our planet like, nah, I'm good.
They're like,
the last good TV and Target's broken.
We're good. But you guys hit it so well. It is, first of all, we have the current occupant of the White House sending out things on Twitter that when the looting starts, that's when the shooting starts. So he's literally calling for the military, right? The National Guard to come out to Minnesota once again and kill citizens. And the reason why we're able to move along and do this is because, we operate in this manner, as I mentioned earlier, and Henry, you brought it up again, we're disincentivized to work together to help one another out, because that's how our individual lives are stacked up. And the other piece about that is, as a society, the othering of people makes us feel okay, right? It's that boogeyman. Oh, the reason why these things aren't happening for me, it's because, yeah, these Mexicans are coming in and doing X. The reason why Y is not happening, it's because these Black people are doing Y. The reason why this is happening is because these terrorists in the Middle East are doing this, this, and this. It's all of these things, and again, coordinated perfectly. And just the language in which media uses, right? Riots, like all of these things to, right, inflame, because people, as we know, and Henry, you know this from data, they don't read actual articles. Headline, got it. That's what it is. That's what they do. And it's the same thing on our TV shows. All our sports talk shows, all of our political shows do the same thing. 2 people or a panel of 7 people yelling louder and louder at each other. No one's saying a mumbling thing. And while that's happening, by the way, the government's fleecing you, us, and robbing us blind. And, you know, all this division, what's going to end up happening is, come November and the ballot box time, you know, it's going to have the right alchemy for an outcome that a certain person wants. And when we wake up and realize that this is what's happening, hopefully we can do something about stopping it.
It's weird. Like, it's, you know, no part of me wants to say, like, don't be scared, don't be angry, right? Obviously. But like, the solution will come from, like, this is good. I feel good about this. I like you guys. We're going to get along fine, right? Like, how big can we make that circle? Can we add a few more people? How about
David,
a few
can
more?
we all move down
right?
to your house? Let's all go live in David's house in Florida.
What a terrible time not to be able to hug. Like, that sucks. Like,
I mean, as long as I get my own water jug at David's house, I'm straight. I'm over here struggling. Like,
hey man, he's got a pool. His kids are going to college. He got room for us, right, David?
I do have room for you, and we are perpetually prepared for hurricanes. So I've got gallon jugs all over the place.
Can you just write Adina on one of them?
Sure.
I gotta refill this like 9 times in a day. It's bad.
Yeah, I'm just too lazy for that. That's why I do one a day.
Go ahead, Coach.
Jarod, both of you have talked about, both you and Adina have talked about the word trust, and it's just so hard to earn that. But we have to do that. And then I think someone put on the chat about, I think Devin might have put that there's still plenty of Americans out there. And Jarod, you've asked the question, how could it be that anyone denies racism is still in existence? Nonetheless, we know for a fact they're denying it. We also know for a fact they're foolish and ignorant for doing so. And so that combination of trying to build trust amongst us and also enlightening people that still might be willing to listen, they just don't, let's just face it, they don't deal with Black people very much in their life, except for waiters or you know, someone's coming to service their house. It could be whomever. Could be the guy that checks your meter for your power. And they don't see him very much, and they just live in ignorance. So our job, I think, amongst other things, is to help them understand. This is where I think NBA players, it can really help, because if any of them are fans of sports, they can hear it that way, that this is reality that some of us are dealing with every day. I don't deal with like you do, Jarod and Adina, because I'm white. But as a coach, I deal with this 200 days a year in a gym with my players and with their families. And I've been doing this since 1987. And I learn all the time, because I have to. The world is changing, not for the better too often, and my players are hurting. Their families are hurting. Henry talked about being scared. We need to be scared, and then we need to be leaders and breathe spirit to the people that we come in contact with, and build trust every way we can. It's fucking hard, and I get it. I understand the anger. I'm a Jewish guy. I know it. I love your point, Jarod, too, about Germany. My wife was there a couple of years ago, and she made a point to tell me that where Hitler grew up isn't a big thing. It's just there on the side of the road. Like, they're intentionally not celebrating in any way, shape, or form that this horrible man lived there. I thought that we could learn from that in America, that mindset.
I'll be honest, though, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, like in Germany, when Jarod brought it up, that if there's any inkling of you promoting Nazi propaganda, your ass is under the jail. Like
you're arrested.
Yeah, you're arrested. And I also believe that Germany did give some form of reparations to people who were affected by the Holocaust. And I think it's amazing how we came out of nowhere with stimulus checks, right? But I've been asking for reparations for I don't know how long.
Mm-hmm.
It just isn't financially possible to give I don't know. It is, but we all know the value of 40 acres and a mule at this point in time with interest is probably going to be, an NBA player this time. And that's what I'm
more than that.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know, we have money because guess who got a new bailout? Yeah, the investment class. And I don't mean those of us with E-Trade accounts trading $100 or $1,000 on our phones. No. You know who? First in line. Hey, we need money. The same people who berate the common us and the economics, Henry, are so tied into this.
You're about to get me on a whole billionaire thing, Jarod.
Let's do it. Because look, it's this idea about we abhor poor people in this country, abhor them, and we penalize them for being poor, right? And now you make them feel like crap. How dare you not have 3 months of rent money saved up? All this other stuff to make you feel like less than. Meanwhile, who are the first people in line literally milking the government dry? You just told me I have to have all this money saved up. How come you don't have it saved up? Like,
why are we talking about Tillman Fertitta all the time?
It always goes back to him.
He's just so handy.
There's one thing Coach was saying about, and we talk about NBA players speaking out about this, and I think a lot of people don't see NBA players and other entertainers as Black, right? Like you're rich, you don't have to go grocery shopping.
Cal Korver isn't Black.
Yeah, okay. True.
Luka, okay.
Yeah, right. LeBron's not Black.
He might be. We're checking on that.
Not Black, right? And it actually reminded me of a scene from Do the Right Thing, where Spike Lee goes up to one of the pizza shop owners, the guy who works in there. He says, "Who's your favorite basketball player?" He says, "Magic Johnson." He said, "Who's your favorite comedian?" He says, "Eddie Murphy." And meanwhile, the guy who works in the pizza shop, he has used the N-word repeatedly throughout the movie.
All these Black people.
Yeah, to all these Black people. But he's like, then he asks him, "Who's your favorite musician?" And he pauses because he realized that he named 2 Black people for his favorite everything as entertainers. And he goes, Bruce Springsteen. And it's like, nah, that's Michael Jackson's your favorite. But he says they're different. They're not Black. They're not like you. And I think that I love when NBA players come out and speak about this because it reminds people that they are Black, that they have been through this, they will go through this, and if they didn't have a jersey with a number on the back, they could be a hashtag also. And I want people to remember that there's no difference between George Floyd and an NBA player at this point in time.
Can I'm excited about the NBA voices on this topic. Steven Jackson's kind of opened a door to some really meaningful, and it's a pandemic and everyone's feeling authentic stuff, right? I don't know what all we're going to hear, but it's going to be very interesting. Like I actually find myself, I read Kevin Arnovitz's Damian Lillard story about the Blazers reopening practice. And I'm like, I want to hear Damian on this. Like he's got a big bunch of thoughts on this. I just know it. And he wouldn't ordinarily share them, but maybe now he does. Right. Then this is sort of a cheap shot, but Adrian Wojnarowski, the next story down is by Woj, and it's about the Timberwolves reacting to, this whole story. And the first 5 paragraphs are about Ryan Saunders, who grew up a millionaire white guy. Like,
right.
And I'm like, who the fuck cares what Ryan Saunders thinks about this?
Son of privilege. Like, it's fascinating. And, Henry and Coach and Judy, this is so important that we're able to talk about this today. And things that I try to do with my work is to everybody when I write about something or whether I speak or go anywhere is recognizing the humanity in these athletes and these players, right? Like, yes, they do all these things and they soar through the air and they give you all these feelings about yourself, right? Because everything ultimately is about how it makes you feel about yourself, right? Yes, get all of that. But they are someone's son, someone's husband, boyfriend, all of those things, right? They're human beings too. Yeah, sure they got money, but that doesn't mean that life is all great and all roses, right? Like problems exist everywhere. And it's so important that every day we see and witness the humanity in these people. And one of the things that I try to do is stop using terms like calling them assets, right? Like they're not. They are people.
I've been
They're
tweeting that for a
people.
while.
They're not assets. Yeah. Like, like they are human beings. So,
keep using that word humanity. I don't think we use it enough. And those that are ignorant, but not necessarily racist, need to hear it. They don't understand that we're all the same. We're all the same. And unfortunately, because we don't understand it, it ends up being self-perpetuating in a sense. And we have the situation that we have. But eat dinner with, I don't care where the people are from in the world. I've been a few places. Henry, I respect Henry's background in travel with his young wife and where he lived in college. Henry had a great line to me. He said one time, everyone wants their kids to go to good schools and the trash to be picked up twice a week.
Yes.
Like, we're just human beings. We're all the same, more or less. And you
go anywhere, man. Like you could, I feel pretty, I mean, famous last words, but you could drop, I feel like you go to Baghdad, wherever, 89% of people everywhere on the planet just want to have a decent, okay life. And there's going to be a way to do that anywhere with anyone. Like,
right.
Like there are some total nut jobs and there are guns, but like with regular, caring and noticing, you can go anywhere and talk to anyone and do anything, right? Like humans aren't
Coach, you just said it, Coach, and it's again because this is what I do. Like I go back to the dead because they know so much. And Du Bois is one of my favorites all through college and still now. And I want to mangle this version of the quote, but it's basically his point about men was, what do we know about goodness? Because there's evil everywhere. Like, what do we know about ignorance? Because what is truth? The thing that what men don't realize is what they don't know about other men, right? Like that is what we don't know about each other. It's that thing. When we realize, like, wait a minute, what is it? It's all that connectivity that you said. Trash picked up, kids going to good school. I want to have nice food every once in a while. We all want the same freaking thing. Literally everybody. And again, when we all get that, we can topple, Henry, wait, ready for it? The billionaire class. Get rid of that crew and be on top.
I just want to add one little wrinkle as we like make our list of demands and we're going to get whatever the modern version of the formula, you guys are going to get like ask for the place in Tuscany. Put that on the list. Like,
got it.
Don't let that one slip through the cracks. That's a good one. Like,
is this after my 40 acres and a mule? It's like, and then Tuscany? Is that what it is?
Listen, maybe some acres here, some acres over there, Like,
we'll spread them out. They don't got to be all in the same place. Yeah, I'm with you.
Sprinkle some acres on it. Sprinkle some acres on it.
Yeah. All right. Who wants the last word? I feel like maybe Jarod, you want this? You get a little closer for us?
Yeah. All I'm going to say is, again, thank you to True Hoop, Henry, you, Coach Thorpe, Judy, Adina, like our whole True Hoop community. Every day we're all on here, and we're all here because I think we're all genuinely, obviously we love basketball, of course, but we also we enjoy people, and we want this world to be a better place. And I just think that we all need to continue that. And I know in the liner notes, like that liner notes, not even a CD, but in the notes for the podcast or the video, we're going to drop some links in there for some of the different texts that I mentioned. Du Bois, James Baldwin, Nicole Hannah-Jones' 1619 Project. I mean, there's so much stuff out there to get your knowledge up on. Read Jelani Cobb, read Ta-Nehisi Coates. There's so many intelligent people out there, far more intelligent than me, talking about this, who really can give you an understanding of what's going on, and it's worth your while.
Okay. Thank you, Dina. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
David.
Thanks,
safe,
bye.
everybody.
All right, we'll see you next week somehow.
Have a good weekend, everyone.